Let's take a look at static routes. We configure unidirectional static routes into or out of a stub network in order for communications to occur. Let's take a look at how that operates. Here's an example of a stub network. Stub network is going to be any network that has one path in and one path out. This router is the gateway or its only gateway in and out for this particular network, the network 172.16.1.0. We configure a static route into this network and out of this network in order for communications to occur. Let's take a look at the one that's going into the stub network. From router A, we configure a static route on router A using the command IP route and then the network that we're going to, 172.16.1.0, along with the mask 255.255.255.0, and then finally the IP address of the next hop, or the router or the device where we're sending the packet to, where we'll send a packet to if we're wanting to get it to the stub network. So the next hop address would be 10.1.1.1, the serial interface for router B. Another way that we could configure this particular static route would be, instead of using the next hop address, we could use the outgoing interface on router A. So we could indicate serial 0. So IP route, the network address and mask, and the outgoing interface. So the outgoing interface can be used, or the next hop address. That's a static route going into this stub network. The purpose of this static route is to eliminate excessive routing entries in the routing table on router A. So that now, since there's only one path into the network, we can simply configure a static route on router A, thus saving any additional entries or additional processing that would be required on router A to learn about the 172.16 network. So that's the static route going into the stub network. Now, coming out of that stub network, we would configure a special type of static route called a default route. Here on router B, the syntax would be IP route any network, all zeros there, any network with any mask. We'll indicate that with all 255s or all ones in the mask. Any network with any mask, we're going to route that out of serial 0 here, out of router B. The other way that we could do that, instead of putting the outgoing interface, would be to use the IP address of router A, 10.1.1.2. So instead there we could say 10.1.1.2, which is the next hop address. Remember, this is a default route, so that any device here in this stub network, if I want to send traffic to any other network out here, any other network, that packet would be routed out of serial 0 or routed to router A here on that particular IP address, that incoming interface on router A. Once again, this saves router B from having to have multiple routing table entries in its routing table for all of the different networks that you could possibly have over here, considering the fact that they'll all have the same destination, which would be that 10.1.1.2 to send the packet. So keep in mind, we configure unidirectional static routes and default routes into and out of our stub networks in order to enable communications and in order to save additional entries in our routing tables.